Joining us this morning is former U.S. Comptroller General David Walker. David, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be back with you, Maria.
How much should we be focused on this? Do you expect we'll see another government shutdown next Friday?
I don't expect that we're going to see a shutdown. And let's put this in context, Maria. There's only one thing in the United States Constitution that the Congress is supposed to do every year, and that's pass timely appropriations bills that should be guided by a budget. They've only done that 4 times in the last 65 years. We need real reforms here. We need automatic CRs. We need to move beyond the debt ceiling. We need debt to GDP limits with specific targets and triggers. And yes, we need comprehensive tax reform, regulatory relief, and a number of other things to get our economy moving again.
Well, I mean, 4 times in 65 years. What's the problem? Why can't we? What keeps holding it up?
Because there's no consequence. There's no enforcement mechanism. One of the things that we ought to do is we ought to say, if you don't pass a timely budget and appropriations bills by the beginning of the fiscal year, which, by the way, is October 1, they still haven't done it yet. They should not get paid until they do, and there should be no retroactive pay once they get it done. That will motivate them. There are no consequences for them failing to do their single constitutional responsibility. That's an annual responsibility.
Steve Forbes, weigh in here.
David, we know that the debt ceiling doesn't work, that they always, that's a nuclear option they're not going to do. But in terms of doing other things, you mentioned the pay, docking the pay, that's a good thing. Having a debt to GDP, maybe that ratio would kick in. But how about, too, the whole 1974 Budget Act, which removed restraints and pounding and the like? Is there any talk, do you hear any talk about putting reforms there where the president has the power to do what governors do and stop appropriations that he thinks are inappropriate?
We clearly need budget reform. We need to think about going to 2-year budgets. We need to have a capital budget, an operating budget. There needs to be some type of additional authority for the president, not just with regard to budgeting, but frankly reorganization. You know, the federal government's grown too big, promised too much, needs to be restructured, and the president doesn't even have reorganization authority. Look, you know, our ship is in trouble, and we need to start making these incremental changes and start making some transformational changes, both at the federal and state levels.
Do you see any impetus for it? As you say, what are the consequences if they continue just doing what they're doing?
Well, the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Mike Enzi, is looking into doing these types of reforms. It's obviously not on the fast track. You know, tax reform is more important. What are we going to do about the Affordable Care Act? You know, what are we going to do on infrastructure? There are a number of other things that are higher on the burner. But ultimately, this is a serious structural and systemic problem that we're going to have to come to grips with.